We're going to talk some baseball. Mark Sweeney, former Cardinal, former big leaguer. You see him now on the pre- and post-game coverage, Bally Sports Midwest on Cardinals Live. And I'm wondering this time of year, Mark, you played a long time. Are players kind of eyeing that All-Star break? I feel like they don't know what day it is or what game is next, but when it's that All-Star break, everybody sort of knows when it's coming.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. I think it's I can't speak for them, but, man, being a bench player and a utility guy, I knew I had 3 or 4 days off, and I was thrilled for it, just to take that mental break because it becomes challenging. It becomes that grind when you're on the road and you're coming back, and you just kind of get just take a break from that, which I think is going to be beneficial for a lot of the guys that aren't all-stars.
All right, so this Cardinals team, on Mother's Day, they were 9 games under 500. And I think a lot of folks around here, maybe not in the clubhouse, but around here were thinking, was a lot like last year. Uh-oh, here we go again. And now, since that moment, and you guys know all the math, they're 32-18 over their last 50. It just felt like a moment there where the season was kind of hanging in the balance. Well, what do you think shifted overall? How does it change that dramatically?
Well, I think first and foremost, the schedule that they had, without giving them excuses, it was a tough schedule to start. 2 West Coast trips immediately, even though those West Coast trips can be fun, but not back-to-back. And there were also other elements that you have to kind of go through as a team, probably searching for that identity, figuring out how to win, get some guys offensively to get off to a better start, because that was a struggle. And now they started to figure out how to win. I think the veteran leadership has been as advertised. They've collectively seemed like in the clubhouse they are. And I always watch the bench and how the reactions are and so forth. And you can go to Nolan Gorman's home run the other night when he had the grand slam and he came in the dugout. Everyone knew how hard it was for him in the month of June, and he came out and had the grand slam, but everyone was celebrating that moment. And those are things that I get to watch, because I think it is important to realize you're going to go ups and downs. This team has really righted the ship, and they're playing consistent baseball. A mindset really for good teams is just go out there and win a series, because you're going to have some bad performances. You're also going to have teams that are playing really well at a particular time. I think they've figured it out, how to go out there and win series, and they've got themselves back into this race.
You know, you mentioned Nolan Gorman. I think the most interesting thing the last few days is that he's been getting singles and doubles, because it used to be homer, strikeout, homer, strikeout, strikeout, homer. What do you think he's doing? Is he trying not to hit homers? That sounds stupid, because they always say, well, I'm not trying to hit a homer. But what do you think the adjustment has been?
Well, we had him on with Jim after the game yesterday because he had a really good game. And you're right. It's not the home runs. It's the consistency factor. I think he's finally in a position where we've heard it from him that he's staying with what he knows works. And what he means about that is it's not necessarily the game and going 2 for 5 or having 2 hits. It's really the process when you get to the ballpark. And you go through your things, you go through video work, you go through your routine in the cages, and then that takes you into batting practice. To me, that's what sounds like he's been working on rhythm and timing. He's tinkered a little bit, and when you tinker, sometimes that doesn't necessarily show its worth immediately. It's for the long haul. And I think they've done a really good job with him. We did a breakdown with him yesterday on our pregame show, and he said, Ollie Marmol said something that was interesting. He said a slow gather. And a slow gather means if it's a leg kick, he's got to get that leg kick going earlier and slower. And at times it looks like he was sped up. It looks like that timing mechanism was really getting him in a bad position to swing out of the strike zone. When you do that at this level, the numbers are going to be down. You're going to have swing and miss, and you're going to have some inconsistencies. I think he has righted that ship and looked very comfortable. And we made a point the other night when he came off the bench. He didn't get the start Friday night. He came off the bench and had 2 of the most impactful at-bats of the night to get them in there. And I know we had the dramatic and someone else ended up getting the game winner. But his at-bats really were key at bats in the game.
You think Nolan Arenado, I believe he said recently that it's as healthy as he's been, that maybe was battling some stuff. We didn't know about it. I mean, the decline was stunning. He's still too young to just say, well, he's an aging player. I would argue that he doesn't have to hit 30 homers. If he drives in runs, that's what they need. What have you seen from him lately?
Yeah, I got to agree with you. And we never know because Nolan Arenado is one of those guys, just like Paul Goldschmidt. They show up every day and they play. They're in the lineup. They don't take days off unless the manager or the organization says, I think he needs one. So you never know, to my point, that what's going on. And there's something. When there was 162 games, there's something. They're just not going to talk about it. So they go out there, whether it's 85, 90%, and they go out there and perform. He does look healthy. He also looks like we know he's a pull hitter, and he likes to pull on the left side, but he's gone the other way. He's backed the ball up a little bit. And when you're out of timing and out of sorts, I think that's how you get it back. Because if you watch Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt, a lot of the opposition try to attack them on the outside part of the plate. And if they get them on the outside part of the plate, they also have the ability to throw that slider that's off the plate to get the strikeout. So that has been negated. And since the Pittsburgh series where he was 1 for 11, he has been excellent this Washington series. And I think they need him. To your point, he's a run producer. So hopefully he's driving runs in. It doesn't have to be through the home run. That 2-out, 2 RBI single yesterday was huge in the game.
Mark Sweeney, our guest, Bally Sports Midwest, Cardinals Live. See him on the pre- and post-game. Former Cardinal, former big leaguer. I'm curious your take on that. They call it the Manfred Man, which is one of the great nicknames, the ghost runner in extra innings. I feel like it's still a divisive topic. Helsley loses his save streak because of the ghost runner that's on base. Somebody online, I think it was just a random viewer, follower, said, how about they put the runner on first so it's not as blatant? But what do you think? Is it too gimmicky? And do you think they even care at this point?
I've always said, too, I don't think the players care. I think they realize that it's a grind. It's an everyday thing. So if you play a 17, 18 inning, extra inning game, it affects you for 2 weeks. And it can affect you, obviously, from the pitching standpoint. I've always taken this side. I know the game has evolved, and they've had to evolve. The regular season, I'm fine with it. I just don't want to see that in the postseason because the postseason is really a determination. You don't want a good game to turn into. I used the Manfred Man, and we lost a game that was pivotal in the outcome of the series. So I'm glad they do that. I have an understanding that from a broadcast perspective, I like shorter games.
Right.
So you start laughing about that. But I remember as a player, those impactful moments and winning those extra inning games has a lot to do with changing your fortunes and changing the clubhouse atmosphere.
Well, I think everybody likes it. Players, broadcasters. I think fans want a shorter game. I will say I was, against the clock. Oh, this is gimmicky. It's like the NBA and a shot clock. But I think largely it's worked. So you know what? I think baseball is better if it's a little more efficient. And maybe it's the players' fault. They just sort of let things kind of happen, and everybody was donkeying around too much. And are you good with the clocks?
I am. I'm good with the pitch clock because I think the game has to be faster paced. It is about fan interest. It is about how they feel. We never worried about a clock, but we also had pitchers that didn't take their time. I think a big determination of that is that they are throwing harder. They're trying to exude all their energy within one pitch and then trying to slow that down. And at times that got very boring. The true outcomes got very boring without the clock. So I think the clock has sped that up. It's given the ability for pitchers to have to get in rhythm, and I like the rhythm and timing of the game. If it is going out there in fast pace and you have a guy that gets in rhythm, it's a fun game to watch. If you slow the thing down and ball one, ball two, a lot of 3-2 counts, I think the fan interest definitely wavers, and we can't have that for this game.
All right, here's a fun conversation you and Scott Warman had over the weekend on Bally's. It was asking Cardinal players their favorite city. We got a couple of Chicagos. I think there was a San Diego in there. And then you came out and said, what about New York? These guys love to eat. I was with you. I was thinking, I would think players love going to New York because you're staying at a nice hotel. You're riding, but you don't have to deal with the hassle of the big city that much. It's the food mecca. What are there some obvious ones for the players? Do they always like the big cities?
I think they do. I think they like the Chicagos. I think they like the New Yorks. Obviously, being on the West Coast, especially with the Midwest teams that start off in April and have those ugly weather delays and snow, cold, all that stuff. I think that's the reason why Southern California flips into it. But listen, I think everyone understands you're playing in the big leagues, so everything is pretty nice. And I always laugh at that because there's not one bad city when you think of going into and playing a professional game night in and night out. So Scott and I had fun with it, but Scott and I are also both foodies. Scott more than me, but he loves that aspect. So I would definitely put New York right there, if not the top of the list.
And San Diego, it's San Diego, so it's great, but isn't it? It's a better baseball town now because of that stadium and that layout. Nothing against the Murph, had character. You can still sort of picture Dan Fouts running around out there, but I feel like the San Diego baseball vibe is much better with the new layout.
Yeah, Petco Park is beautiful. They do a fabulous job down there. The fan base is starving for that traditional winter, and they haven't had it, so they're starving for that. It just adds to the atmosphere. So, yes, I mean, I think an everyday player on an opposition comes into San Diego, and on a Wednesday night for a night game, it's packed. And you don't get that everywhere. So I think that's what's exciting, especially when they have a talented group like they do. I just think more places need that. And San Diego definitely does a good job. And obviously, 75 and sunny when you go down to Southern California always helps.
You know what shocked me? I went out there to do a story about the Chargers leaving because it was a year after the Rams had left St. Louis. And I said, but for San Diego fans, it's only an hour plus up the road. And I went out there and everybody's like, there's no chance we'll do that. That's L.A. We don't go up there. This is our team. Like I said, if they moved the St. Louis Rams 100 miles north, everybody'd say, well, it's inconvenient, but let's go to the game. I was shocked, and it just seemed like San Diego held firm, like, okay, you took our team. We're not going up there to watch them.
They did. They were very disappointed that they lost their team. I mean, they took a lot of pride in having their professional teams there. They lost the Clippers back in the day, but I think losing the Chargers was very tough pill to swallow for a lot of fans, and I can't blame them, because it just brought a certain energy to the city. So those loyal fans deserve to be unloyal and unfaithful anymore.
How much fun is Mark Sweeney having being in town? I think last time we talked, you've been golfing with Ozzie, and then you get to hang out at Ballpark Village and just kind of reconnecting with this franchise. What's that been like for you?
Man, I've had a blast, and I was so thrilled to be able to get this opportunity to work with a talented group and be around a lot of the people that were here even when I was a player. So the history of this franchise never gets old, and I feel that every single time I'm on air. I think Scott and Alexa have been outstanding, but it also is the people behind the scenes. They work tirelessly to get a really good product out there for these Cardinal fans to watch, and I'm excited to be a part of it. I love coming every single time I get an opportunity to, and it's been a fun team to watch because this team grinds it out, and they're figuring out and they're snowballing in the right direction, which for our jobs, it's a lot easier when they're winning, and it's been a lot of fun.
And they've been winning without Goldschmidt and Arenado doing things they normally do. That gives people hope, I guess. What's your final thought here? I guess assessment. My sense is that they're in the mix. They'll be in the playoff conversation the rest of the way, and depends on what they can add or if anybody gets hot, that sort of thing. But do you think that's who they are right now, is that they're at least in the mix throughout?
Well, the greatest part of this is when you say it's not Arenado, it's not Goldschmidt yet. They haven't been the versions of themselves that we're used to. You still have the stories of Mason Wynn and Alec Burleson and Donovan. You can go on, but also the pitching performances of Ryan Fernandez and Helsley. So it always is centered around your stars. But when you have the ability to showcase some of the stories that you didn't expect, it's a really good sign. And I think this team is putting themselves in a position where, yes, they can be aggressive at the trade deadline. They also have guys coming off the IL. They're going to make their team even better. And I think this offense really hasn't shown their ceiling yet. And I think a lot of the individual exploits we've had has been enough, but I think it's going to continue to get better.
All right, we're going to let him roll. He's probably got a tea time, or he and Scotty are headed to Paul Mano's. There's some food in store. But, Mark, thanks for hopping on. We'll catch up maybe later in the season.
I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for having me on.